Hey there, I'm Parker Rex, and on this channel, I go through a nope. Hey there, I'm Parker Rex, and I led product and technology for a startup that did well over $50 million a year until we exited. After that, I did a couple different startups where the tech was great, but the idea wasn't so good, and they were based in AI. I spent pretty much every single day using AI tools since GPT 3.5 Turbo came out and the SDK. So as long as you could have been building on it, I have been building on it. And on this channel, I go through a couple different pieces of information that can hopefully help you. It's going to be coming from someone who's in the space, someone who's built a lot of software, someone who is using these services to generate real money. So let's go through. We have a couple different things here. So we do Q&A, we do AI news, so things that I'm either just discovering and want to share with you of what's working. And if there is some big update, like a new model comes out, then I'll talk a little bit about that. Then we go through the strategy of how I'm building the AI services business to 100K a month. And then I actually go through and build something. So you can see how I do it. It is raw and uncut, unedited. So let's jump in. I don't think we have any questions, but I just want to check. So if you guys ever have questions, you can just drop them below. I went really in depth on one of them yesterday that was about open source strategy. So if you're interested in open source technology and kind of the way to do it, then you should check that out because I posted about it yesterday. Looks like I got a comment: comparison shopping, optimize local grocery store shopping lists. Okay, that was just a comment on a post that I made. I don't think I have any unanswered questions unless I went into my school, which will be paid soon. I'm going to switch that this week because I realized by having 33 people in here and only 3 people that actually engage, then it's really just 30 people. Otherwise, you have a bunch of people that aren't engaging. They're kind of just leeching. So there were actually a bunch of questions from this guy Aiden in here, so I can check those out and try to answer one of them. Actually, I answered it in there already, so I can just skip to the next part. So on the news side, there's 2 tools that I wanted to talk about. So one is this tool called Prometheus. So it's like Prometheus, but for prompt. And what I've found is that a lot of tools exist for optimizing prompts, but they don't provide that much value. And I had tried this before, but didn't get enough value out of it. So I want to try it again. And it seems that this would be the best way to have all of your models in one place and to be able to save them. I know that there's a bunch of other ones out there, but I've heard really good things about this and it just feels well made. So the benefit of this would be that if you do have prompts and you want to save them and you want to test them against other models, then you would do it in here. Vercel has an AI playground. This one may not be as good because it's really just you have the ability to add them, but I don't see any easy way of getting into the nitty gritty. You have to open things. I don't really like that as much, but I think using these tools, you can get the most out of the prompts. So I will start to test out Prometheus starting today. And it's especially important because I have a workflow down for this content engine that I'm building for myself that I will likely offer for clients later. But one of the big parts in it is, let's say you have a summarization node and you want to be able to get really good outputs from it so it sounds like you. Well, doing the iterations in here over and over and over again, it's just a little slower. And it's a little tougher because you're going up and down and working within this node editor, kind of a pain in the butt. So I think having something like Prometheus where you could keep the data set in one place So I could have a bunch of examples of, in my case, articles that I like. I could have a bunch of transcripts of YouTube videos that I like if I was making a script writer. But I could really see how this would be the next level of getting the most out of workflows for both businesses and yourself. Because then you'd just be flipping back and forth between Make and Prometheus. And when it comes to the prompts, you want to model them after stuff that works. So always look at the top 1% of your field and try to mimic that. So what I've done is I started to go through this deck that Gary Vaynerchuk put together. He just recently wrote a book and I was listening to him last night. And say what you will about his cringe levels, he's had a fantastic track record on predicting the future. So if he says something, I typically listen. I won't consume his content really at all until it's some big platform change, or I think that he is saying something that is at that
If you
level
do not
beyond
put your
just, the normal day to day go grind stuff. So
the
what he's
craziest part,
pointed
Nathan.
out is the power of social, but the way that it's changing is it's no longer a social graph. It's going from a social graph to an interest graph. And we'll touch on that in a little bit and how it ties into this content funnel update. But Prometheus is going to, I believe, play a big part in getting the most out of these, because you can't sound like an AI. Going into the AI era, you cannot sound like an AI. It has to sound like you. So providing it lots of examples is going to be the way to do that. And if you don't have examples, if you're starting from scratch, or if a client doesn't have examples, well, you need to write examples. And the way that you write those examples is you would take writing that you like, create a data set out of that, and then prompt on top of that to get the examples that you ultimately want that you can then train on. So that is really important. That's what I'm going to be doing every day on this video. The last section for building is going to be dedicated towards this content system. It'll play into my daily growth and it will take me less time. I'm going to spend more time building this so that I can get more leverage on my time and grow an audience quicker to deliver more value. Second, I want to talk about is MCPs. If you haven't heard of them, it's a model context protocol. It came out in November from Anthropic, and it's a gateway or connector between large language models and other tools. The really popular ones are in the coding niche, but we're discovering that it can communicate with other niches. One being Blender. So Blender is 3D modeling software. And you can see that he's taking industry grade 3D modeling software and connecting it and then chatting with an external piece of software. I think that this really communicates power of MCP, because it is totally separate from the coding world. It's showing you how strong a connection can be between two tools. And if I just want to kind of break this down, let's take this code. Let's just I'm going to start keeping a collection of these in a folder. So I'll make dir space MCP. I'm going to cdn to MCP. I'm going to do a git clone on that code base. I'm going to open up the code base. And then let's take a look. Just so we can understand together how this works, because I haven't looked at it. This theme is called Midnight Tokyo, by the way, if you're curious. But let's take a look. This is just your basic init for a Python app. It looks like you can import this MCP server, fast MCP. This might be similar to fast API, but for MCPs. We're using WebSockets to keep the connection open, persistent, using asynchronous functions. We're using some different types which is nice because it needs to, if you're unfamiliar, a type is essentially a definition for a data. It's going to be logging information out with info. So the time, the level name. This is really important when you're doing any sort of logging, is what level of logging it's going to have. So you're classifying it. It might be a warning, it might be info. But having all of that logged and categorized and time stamped, it's just the way to do it, especially in the AI era. So we have a big class. We have a function for connecting and making a connection. It looks like Blender has an add-on for a socket server, so it keeps it open. So that's how you get that real-time connectivity. That's connecting and disconnecting. We have one for receiving the full response. So it looks like we send something over socket to Blender. This is saying this is how we're going to receive this. And then we pass it a socket and the buffer size, so the size of information coming across. If it's too large, we chunk it. We get an empty chunk. Connection might be closed. If there's no chunks, if you haven't received anything yet, this is an error. Okay, so it's logging out. It's covering our error. Okay, so we're joining the chunks back together. And the reason you chunk it is because if you have too much information going across the wire at once, LLMs won't handle that well, at least in the context of writing. So I'm assuming it's the same. Probably a lot of information going back and forth because if you look at Blender, there's a significant amount of info that needs to get into there. Get to here, we've either timed out or broke out the loop. So it's just looping back and forth. Can send commands across the wire, has timeouts in place. Has a server lifespan coverage. It creates the MCP server with life. This is a really nice file. And typically, this is a best practice. You want to actually read the code yourself. You can go and ask the AI for a summary, of course, but for something as small as this project, I find it more beneficial to actually understand it. When you have a little bit of depth on the project, then making additions, changes, feature additions, whatever, while using an AI will be a lot more effective. Getting the scene information. So all of these are tied to the MCP tool that we've started. So everything at the top is server creation and error handling. And then these are actually the tools. You can pass all these different params. Really cool. Wow. So yeah, this is a fantastic example of what's possible with MCP. If you could then use this as an example where I wanted to create an MCP for another tool, what I would do is I would take the documentation that is associated with this Blender file, and I would use that as an example for creating future MCPs. Then you'd have an MCP agent. It's just the same thing that we spoke about with creating the content one. You want examples, you want best practices. So because this one has 6,400 stars and it had a fantastic demo, demos are tricky. You can fake stuff, but I would feel comfortable using this as a base to work on. Let's talk about the content funnel update and some strategy on that. So if you're unfamiliar, a few videos ago, I was ideating on how could I get all of the content that I'm creating on this channel and on my main channel turned into every platform. So all of those are dated, but you get it. And it's following a similar format where it's a bit of an update on the Gary Vee thing, but it's the long form to short form across all platforms. Iman Gadzhi, bit of a guru type, but very successful, $100 million, speaks for itself. So follow what he's doing. He's a top 1%er. And Luke Belmar as well are doing a similar strategy where they have their pillar piece of content. They transcribe it. All right, I'm assuming this is the workflow. I know they have hundreds of employees. I can't afford that. Maybe later. So I'm trying to figure out how do I leverage AI using this unfair advantage I have, which is being very technical and get a similar effect. So from a high level, you record the long form, you have an AI transcription that's created. That transcription is stored somewhere alongside the video edit. It is then sent to a third party service that makes the audio sound better. If this audio sounds good, it's because of this third party service that's watching for it. That third party service does two things. One, it processes it and creates a couple different outputs. So it creates an MP4 that sounds better. It creates a captions and subtitles and markers and summary files, all separate files. So those would all be stored somewhere. Then it also posts it to YouTube. Then the idea would be that this is being stored in a project management software or even a Google Sheet where we can keep the status of where it's at in the funnel or in the pipeline. So you'd be watching for some sort of status, maybe that it's been processed. You would add that information with links to where the things are. In that template, you'd have all the fonts, the colors, the creative brief, what to do, what not to do. This part likely would be down the line. This would be for more so an editor. So I put green check marks if it's fully automated, and then I'll put blue if it's human in the loop. The human in the loop would then go in and do this. Now I need to think about, I haven't found a third party that can do short form clipping that has an API. So I need to figure that out. But at the end, then I'd get an email to review it before it goes. And then I'd update it to ready to post, and then I'd manually post it. Then we go from video to text. So we've covered short form and the creation of that. This would be for text and images and voice. So that covers X, LinkedIn, Facebook, blog post, potential audio snippet at the top of the blog post. So then you'd use the same watch on the G Drive, filter it by the extension. You'd run a chat module, which would cover the creation of said blog tutorial. You'd store that, update the status, have it be ready to post. You could actually do the post with the Supabase module and then update the status back into either ClickUp or Google Sheet. Then the chat would be watching for blog posted. So after the long form is there, then you'd create the LinkedIn and the Facebook. From there, you actually need images for them. So it kind of ends with a kick off to Flux. This would probably be an HTTP request with a really good prompt that you can find on my website, parkerx.com, for some sort of Perplexity-like image. And then you combine the image with the text to put it into Canva for bulk create. So Canva has bulk create feature where you can put in a spreadsheet, so image text, and then you would store that back with all the images. You take the the video and audio file and have a prompt, which I think was before, but you take some sort of summary and then feed that into 11 Labs, and you end up with a blog post that has the actual text, the actual video that's posted, that's referencing the daily upload or whatever it was in that video. And then you have a summary in audio format using 11 Labs that's trained on my voice. So that's the whole system, and we're picking off one piece at a time. So what I've done today is I'm trying to figure out just how do you go from A to B? How do you go from a blog post or a piece of news that I ultimately will talk about to a nice looking AI generated Instagram post? So in here, what I have is it's G form to fire call to Instagram text and caption. This is actually RSS because I figured originally I would take the links that are in this video that I'm talking about right now, and I would post them in a form, and then that would kick it off. However, if I can automate that first part where I don't have to go out and find the news, then that's even better. One part that will be tricky is getting the RSS feed to show the things that would matter to me. So I think I'd still need this human in the loop where I could get pinged in the morning with this. So that's probably what I'd want to do is change it so that I can still be the stopgap between what is good and what is not. So potentially or add a module for messaging me the latest news. This could be an email, it could be whatever, but I think that that would be better. So, regardless, right now, as it stands, if I typed in 5 items and I run it, what it's going to do is it's going to this bundle of RSS feeds, which is going through 3 separate feeds, which are keywords, ChatGPT, prompting, and AI news. And it's taking 5 of those and it's returning the name of the article, the description, the image, and the URL. Next, we use a third-party service that's called Firecrawl. And what Firecrawl does is, as you can see, it's kicking off these scrapes, is it goes and scrapes the page, but it does it in a format that is very LLM friendly. So you'll get down to what you actually want. If I can find the example. Yeah, they crawl, they gather clean data, they handle dynamic content, they have smart weight built in so that you're not going to hit any sort of API walls. It can parse it does all this stuff that you just don't want to have to worry about. And then that way the output that it brings back is going to be optimized for LLM readability. And so we did, I think, 5. And after that, we did an iterator. An iterator lets you iterate or go through the list of the items that are returned. So for this case, RSS had 5. And then iterator is saying, after we've gotten this from the previous step, go do the following steps individually. So if I didn't have this, then it would just look at the first one, or maybe it would look at all 5 and try to do a summary. That's not what we want. We had 5 separate outputs that are being done by this article summarizer. So you can see that, cool, we sent 5 separate fire calls because we iterated through that list. And then now I need to do an additional iterator, which I don't know if I did. Yeah, it is mapping through the markdown, right? So it's doing 5 separate iterations and then passing it to this article summarizer. So I'll get 5 different article summaries and caption texts. And then after that, it will store 5 separate rows on our database. So if I look at this and I scroll up, boom, we've got 5 different pieces of information. It looks like we got some repetition. Yeah. So what it's doing here is it's actually taking. I had just changed the prompt, and this is good. It's real. I'm not going to edit this. I had changed the prompt a little bit to give it examples, and it looks like I may have made a mistake on selecting user instead of assistant. So let's change that real quick. We'll go into the article summarizer. This will load this up. You can see why Prometheus would be more helpful for something like this, because I could really handcraft exactly what I want in a platform that's optimized for it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to switch text content. I'm going to do it to developer/system. And then I'm going to put in the examples. I'm going to put in the examples as a developer/system. And I'm going to put in the examples as a developer/system. Cool. Let's hit save. And now let's go back and we're going to delete this stuff. I'd originally put this in here, but it was overwriting it, so forget it. We're going to delete this table as well. And let's put in summary / caption text. Cool. And let's make this look a little bit decent. Great. Now, when we run it, it should give us what we want. Let's do 2. So it's quicker. Iterator. It's going to there. You can see they're color coded. That's really helpful. I'm not going to open this up because it has an API key in it. Let's do it. It looks like we got 2 bundles back. This year is the year that AI gets better than humans, says Kevin Well from OpenAI. He said that yesterday. Cool. And for examples, what I did was I jumped onto Instagram and I just typed in the keywords that I want to cover. And then I looked at what was working and I just posted that as the examples. That's something that you should do. And something that I've recently learned is if organic posts are doing really well, remix those and put a twist on them. Don't reinvent the wheel. The market's telling you exactly what works. So now let's go back. Seems to still want to do this first one. So wondering why the caption is, I feel like we have something going on with our prompt. But the second one, Geek Innovations unveils a new gadget designed to simplify daily tasks. Okay. It's just not that good of an output. So let's go back into here and let's make sure that the examples are not used in the actual output. So we'll come in here. You're responsible for this, yada, yada, yada. We pass the total number of bundles, which I believe, now we actually want value. Yeah, so here's the articles and then value. Okay. That should fix that. And then use the company name, people's names when possible. Don't use emojis. Don't use exclamation marks. Be professional and concise. Examples of image text. Let's just dump all this in here. O3 Mini High can handle it. Cool. We'll delete those. Example image text to use for inspiration, not actual output. Just to be really clear. And then we'll go down. Okay. Yeah, that should do it. Okay. Now let's try 1. We're going to go back. We're going to delete this. Kind of doing the build and the strategy at the same time. So this should look for a header. So we need to change that too. Go back in here, Google Sheets. Contains header, yes. Wonder why it's adding it below. Contains headers. Okay. Now we need to put in 1 and let's run it. It's calling Firecrawl. Won't really need the iterator. It's just 1. What I think will happen is I'll have a bunch of these individual scenarios. So we're starting from the top, right? And then what I can do is just reference the same sheet in a different scenario. I think that'd be more manageable. Okay, so it found ChatGPT as a therapist balancing bright benefits with clear limits and real risks. ChatGPT is being looked at as a tool that might help with therapy. Some say that it can offer friendly advice when people need to talk. I'm curious how this would work. I still would want to make it a little bit more clickbaity. I feel like there's a balance where it needs to be obviously engaging, but it can't be over the top. So let's do a little bit more tweaking in here. Okay. Is the image text. No more than 20 words. Make it clickbaity and engaging. Your extract the most interesting pieces of information. This is super important to get right and must capture the reader's attention. Get them to stop scrolling. See how that does. And then while that's going, what we can do is let's grab the output and take that, delete these. We're going to post that into an image generator and just see what it gives us. Let's go back here. Let's run it. Let's go to Gamma. I discovered the AI image gen stuff by purchasing a tool that's totally unrelated, but it taught me what to do. So that's cool. So what I'll do is I'm going to use this. I'm going to grab our prompt or a perplexity style image. Go to the AI tools resources, scroll down to the top 1%, this up, and let's grab this prompt. Then we'll go back into, well, I just covered the previous clipboard, but it's fine. Let's go into here. I'm going to paste this, and then under user input, we're going to take whatever the output is. So, oh, it got the same one. Interesting. I guess there were no new articles in the last 5 seconds or minute. So let's post this in here. And I'm going to do this, and let's just see what happens. I'm curious. No style. Let's generate based on the image text. So probably need to separate those. I mean, that is kind of cool looking. Probably need to modify it. But if I took this, let's take this image and just see what an example post would look like. And again, I'm doing this stuff manually before I go and automate. That's something that I recommend. So I had scaffolded some stuff yesterday, what a cool post could look like. So let's just take the image we got and let's paste this in here. Make it white. Now we need a different background. So, oops. Let's grab the background, hide that for now. And we need that image. I'm going to have a similar style for all of them. I don't know if this is the style. In fact, I don't know if that's necessarily speaking to me, but this is where just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking comes in. So I also don't think that this would be detrimental towards a page that's going to have no following at the beginning. So if I just looked at it, like, okay, what would this look like if I did post? And I would see example. I don't know. I think the next step I would do is I would put this on a phone. So I'd get the Figma Mirror app open on my iPhone and I'd just look at it. But yeah, next steps for this would basically be adding some sort of suffix here at the end. It'd be like go subscribe, check out my email newsletter or whatever, some sort of call to action, and then just working on this prompt a bit. But that's definitely a good V1. And I think that it would make a lot of sense. I said I was going to finish this MVP. Let's just try to see what Canva is capable of before we jump. I don't know how many minutes I'm at, but I'm going to cap these at 50 minutes. We're at 35. So how does the oops, I don't want to run that. Stop it. Oh, I didn't know spacebar does that. Interesting. Let's see how Canva works in here. So let's grab a Canva. And can we do bulk create a new design, data new design, data folder, create a comment, make an API call, the image, upload the image. Canva Fluxify turns it. Okay, cool. So we could use this app to use Flux. So let's use it in a new design. It's going to be for Instagram posts. I don't know which. I want the tall ones. So Instagram post, Instagram ad, Instagram reel, Instagram post square. Okay, so it's this one. So, yeah. So can we use Flux to go into this? Flux Chanel, Flux Pro. I'll use it by image credits. And they probably have. Yeah, so Fluxify is doing a step that we just need to do ourselves. So Og Blend Labs is a company that realized, oh my gosh, everyone's going to want Flux inside of Canva, but we don't want to do that because it's going to cut into or it's going to increase the cost. So what I'd likely need to do in this case is, let's just sketch this out. Let's pull up the existing flow. And we need to use Flux because it just looks good, right? The whole point of this is we're not going to put something out there that degrades the brand from the start. Like, it needs to look good because then it'll work. So if I look at this, we have RSS goes to Iterator. Iterator goes to Firecrawl. Firecrawl goes to Iterator. Iterator goes to ChatGPT. We might find that we want to use Anthropic. So I'm going to put red for changes. Anthropic, they're better at writing. People will say they're not, but they're wrong. After ChatGPT, we'll go to G Sheets. Cool. So a couple of things I know off the top of my head are that we're going to need separate image texts. We're going to need to basically pull out the information and separate it. Because as it stands today, we have one that's going, and it just lands in here and it's messy. What we do want is to actually have image text in here. We want to obviously have it like be separated. So let's grab that. Cool. So we want that to happen. We have a header. The header's some reason being a pain. Cool. So I know that we want that. I know that we want to, what else? I want to make this prompt better. So we're going to get the information back. We need to iterate through it. I think the best way to do this would be, we'd have two Anthropics, some sort of router, I'm guessing is what's going to be called. And then this would go off for image text. and this would go off for image caption, which I almost want to just have it be the summary, because the summary as an output will be used for a blog article later. So each one of these outputs is your asset. Now, that means that we need to have one that makes the kind of clickbaity um, actual caption, but then both of those will go back into the G Sheet. And ideally, let's see, we'd have the source, because we want to use that later in the blog so we can reference it. We can basically say, like, this is our take on the AI news. We're not just copy pasting it. This is the remixed version of it in our tone. So we need the URL. And it also helps with the domain authority of the website, because if it's linking out to other places, then you're going to become a more reputable authority in the eyes of every search engine, not just Google. So you need the URL, you need the image text, you need the summary, you need what else? What could be interesting is we need to write an image prompt at some point. But yeah, so that would just store it. So then after we've stored it, what do we need to do? We've gone through, we're at the start. We need to also tweak the RSS filtering, maybe. It's really like we're classifying the stuff that we want to do and talk about before it even hits an iterator. So what may happen here is we could have a chat GPT, CPT. So instead of this tweaking of it, like, that's what we want, but I don't think we're going to do good by just doing keywords. So I think if we return all of them, and then if we had a ChatGPT instance where it could classify the style of story, like the topic, where if you type in ChatGPT and you get all these results, like, I basically want to have like a blacklist. I think you can do that in RSS actually. But celebrities, I don't care if, the one of them that came back was like, what's Demi Lovato think about AI? Like, I don't care at all about that. I don't want to have celebrity stuff. I really could just start there actually on the RSS, and then I'd still want to go to this Chat GPT, because then I can say, I'm going to type this so that it's going to fit in the space. But you are an expert. I want to say like staff editor in chief or something. You are responsible for highlight selecting which articles get published in a popular news publication. You will receive a list of articles, and you will analyze them for the you'll receive a list of 15 articles, and you will analyze them for the following, or analyze and select the top 5 based on impact to global economy, impact to the job force, popularity. I'm giving it a ranker, saying you're going to call it 15 of these articles, sift them down to the best 5. So if this is running every half hour, so every 30 minutes, you get 15 stories. Then every 30 minutes, you're going to sift that down to the best, call it even like 2, maybe 3. Let's say the best 3. And then this ChatGPT is going to make sure that our inputs are better. There's a common ism called garbage in, garbage out. And that's what we're doing. We're making sure that at the source, we're getting the best articles. And that's going to be done by blacklisting and then having this sort of like classifier. So then after ChatGPT does that, then we'll go back into the iterator. It'll sift through the three. It'll do the fire crawl. There's really no modification done there. Just turns it into LLM friendly markdown. Iterate through that again. We're going to do a router, I think is what it would be. Because then it can, maybe it's an iterator and a router. I think so. And then this would be filtered on, maybe it's like data dot image text, some sort of filter, right? So we'd have a filter. And if it's the image text, then it goes there. If it's the summary, or no, I need some sort of information. What do we get back from Firecrawl? Data.markdown. Let's run this again. And hit save there. And then we're going to actually change real quick. We're going to change this to filter. We're going to have a blacklist, add blacklist keywords. Yeah, so that's the thing. I can't just put celebrity in here. So, yeah, so we will need the classifier, and then I will need to rotate my API key so that you guys don't take my Firecrawl account. So forget this blacklist thing. We will just do that on an API call to ChatGPT. So can modify this. Articles to avoid. Since anything that speaks about celebrities. Cool. And it'll go on. We don't need this anymore. So then we'll get the 3 stories, 3 best stories. Every 30 minutes. So what? 48 times 3. We get 144 posts a day. Whoa, that's crazy. 144 posts a day. It's 52,000 pieces of content. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. Well, if it works, it works, right? We can get the outputs and see. Could be a pretty expensive thing to run, but we'll test it. Iterate. We get a good image text, a good summary. Now we need to figure out how to use the Flux generator. Can't use Gamma. Let's see, Flux. How to generate images using Flux over API. Automatically do this with this API call.
Hey everyone, my name is Yanis, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can generate. We're going to make a request.
So he's using FAL.
So we are on the backend now, AI. So we're gonna use to generate the images using Flux AI image generator. So we need first, if you don't have an account with Fall AI, so you need to click sign up, and you can do it with your GitHub account. Where do we get the URL? Head back to Make, and as you can.
Okay. Generative media platform for developers. Would this be the best one, or would it be Replicate? Because this Replicate probably be better. Yeah. So I'd use either Replicate or FAL. So let's see. Need to figure out the cost of those. Replicate probably do this one or FAL. And you'd take, before that, we need to give it a good prompt, right? So we know that this replicate thing will be for the image gen. Oh, before we get there, we need to have a really good prompt. So then move this over. How do we get the prompt? Well, of course, we're going to use a meta prompt. So after the G Sheet, we will hit. I have an assistant that does this. So instead of a chat call, this will be OpenAI assistant. And what I'll do is I'll call, this is for the meta prompt for image gen. Cool. What that does is it's going to say, hey, we have all this stuff. And can you give us a really badass Perplexity style prompt that we can give to an image generator? So then we'd have the prompt. We probably want to store the prompt so we don't have to run it a million times and wait. So then I'd store the prompt back to G Sheet. So we're back into G Sheets. I just like to always keep an eye on what's going on. It makes it a lot easier to build. So in G Sheets, we're going to add the image prompt. The meta prompt. Yeah. Okay. We'd get the meta prompt, image prompt. After image prompt, we'd see it. And then we'd do HTTP call. So let's scooch this down. Yep. It's going to use one of those, but the actual module in here will be HTTP. Yep. I like this a lot. Cool. Then finally, we need to store it. And we're running up on 50 minutes. So I got to run because I have 1 hour to do these every day. And it takes me about 10 minutes to edit. So upload. Finally, we need to store that image. Where will we store the image? We can actually just stick it into the actual G Sheet itself as an image in cell. Yeah. So store image on cell. Cool. That seems like a good plan. We're going to continue building it tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video. That's the way that you pay me. Check out the school. Yeah, it's actually not free anymore. So check out the school anyways. And like the video, subscribe, check out the main channel as well. Do all that awesome YouTube stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow. See ya. And we're doing a thumbnail. This video is going to be called Planning a Content System with AI That Doesn't Suck. Is it possible? That's pretty engaging, right? And a smile, and look this way. All right, see ya.